Hello everybody, welcome to Totally Tabled. My name is Shaggy, and today I'm doing a solo playthrough of Bitoku. When you're setting up for the solo game, you just set up everything as if you were playing a two-player game. I've shuffled up all the tokens here, the buildings, the crystals, the dragonflies, and the spirits, and dealt them out. I've randomized and placed out the 5 forest treasure tiles. In a two-player game, you want to put a neutral player on the 4th space of each of these tracks. We've also randomly put out 4 of these sort of starting buildings, shuffled up the vision cards, shuffled up and dealt out the Bitoku cards and the yokai cards. From now on, I'm going to call them the horizontal and the vertical cards. There's one of each on the 4 spots. And the solo player is gonna begin the game as the start player. Now, over on my player board, everything is just like a two-player game would be. Got a random dragonfly tile. Shuffled up my deck. Got a random vision card. For our solo opponent, you flip one of the boards to the other side and give them all of the player pieces. You set their dice to 2, 3, and 4. Their dice values will never change. You also get a second set of dice. You just need 2. They also get a random dragonfly tile. You set their banner here to the inactive side. And you grab a random rock from the rock row here. And then you grab a random second rock from the supply. And that second rock tile has to be of a different type than the first. So because their first one dealt with these cards and sort of the suit of cards, the second one had to be different. We drew one and it was the buildings, so it's fine. Because the second rock tile dealt with buildings, they got a stone in addition to their wood. And there you go, we're pretty much all set up for the solo game. In Bitoku, we are playing spirits, and there's a great spirit that is moving on, and we're trying to be the spirit to take the place of the great spirit or something like that. Can't say I have a firm grasp on exactly what's going on here. Mostly what we're going to be doing is placing dice and playing cards onto our board, placing dice onto these 4 different forest spots, as well as these 4 spots there in the Great Temple, I think it's called. And then we can also move dice across the river to these spots to take additional actions. So it's mostly dice placement with some light deck building going on. I'm going to explain everything as we go, so as always, let's just dive right in. As I said, the solo opponent goes first. So the first thing we need to do is take their action deck, shuffle it up, and deal out 3 cards. We then roll the 2 dice, and the lower value on the die is going to determine which of those cards to activate. A 1 or a 2 on the lower die would mean they activate the rightmost card. 3 or 4 means the middle. 5 or a 6 means the leftmost. Since we got a 4, we're going to be activating that middle card. We then go to the rule book and we consult this Tengu activation cycle, or TAC. And this is a flow chart that we have to go through to determine which action they're going to take. I'm going to go through and just read them, and you just keep going until you get to one where all of the conditions are true. So the first one says the Tengu is our solo opponent, is at a contested crossing. Well, a contested crossing would be if we were both at either one of these 2 spots or one of those 2 spots. So we don't have to worry about contested crossings right now. We can move on to the next step. The next one says the location shown on the bottom of the active Tengu card is available. On these Tengu cards, at the bottom here, it shows a little picture, and that picture corresponds to one of these 4 different forest areas. So right now, that picture corresponds to this area, and it is available. There's not a die in that spot, so that means it's available. The number 1 condition is true. The second condition says the Tengu has no unlocked dice, but has at least 1 locked die. Well, we start with our dice locked. So yes, they don't have an unlocked die, but they do have at least one locked die. So that's true. Number 3 is the Tengu attitude tile is inactive. Well, yep, we start inactive. So that's also true. And now the 4th and final condition here says the active Tengu card is in the leftmost position in the card row. That is false. He did not activate the leftmost, he activated the middle. We almost met all the conditions for step B, but he failed the last one, so we have to move on. We don't activate that step. So that was step B. Now we're going to step C. It says 1, the location shown on the bottom of the active Tengu card is available. We established that's true. And number 2, the Tengu has at least one unlocked die. That's not true, so we got to move on. D, number 1, the Tengu has at least one locked die. That is true. And 2, the Tengu has the associated resource, or the card shows no associated resource. So associated resource is like that right there, that stone on the bottom right-hand side of the card. This one, no associated resource, so that is true. So there we go. The AI met all the criteria for step D. So that's the one that we're going to activate. So over here on the actions, it says unlock one die and spin the associated resource. Then perform the action for the location shown on the bottom of the active Tengu card without placing a die there. So when we unlock dice, we go from the lower value to the higher value with the AI. So he's going to unlock that 2. Doesn't have to spend an associated resource because there isn't one shown. And then we're going to perform the action of that location, but we're not going to place a die there. So as it shows on the card here, they're just going to get a wood and a stone. You have to do that every time when you are dealing with the solo opponent's turn. You go through that flowchart and you keep going until you find one of those steps where they meet all the conditions. Now, after they've used the card, you discard it. You slide them over to the right and fill it in. Now it's our turn. And actually, one of the things that we should have done earlier, before this, is we should have drawn 4 cards from our shuffled deck here. And we're going to pick 3 of these to keep. We're going to discard one of them. I'll just go ahead and discard that one. And so we have a hand of 3 cards. We're basically going to keep taking turns until we pass. And we can't pass until we have played all 3 of our cards and we've put all 3 of our dice onto the board. Right now, our dice are locked. We have a 3, 2, and 1. That's what we start with, but they're locked. When we play a card into a spot, that will unlock the die. There's also other special effects that can allow us to unlock dice. And one of the things we can always do is we have these active pilgrims here. We start with 3 active pilgrims. The rest of our pilgrims are asleep. We can always burn a pilgrim, discard them out of the game in order to unlock a die. So if there was a spot we really wanted to go onto the board right away, we could do that in order to unlock a die and place it out immediately. I don't think I'm that worried about that right now. So I think instead we're going to play a card, which will allow us to unlock a die. I think I'm just going to play this guy right here, and we're going to play it into that slot. Because we played that into that slot, that die unlocks. And this guy just either gives me a Saki or a Jade. I'll take a Saki, since I already have a Jade. So we roll the dice. Ooh, we got a 1 as the lowest, so that's going to be the rightmost card here. And once again, we just go through this activation cycle. Now I'm going to go through it a little faster, try to speed up that process a little bit here, but I'll try to explain what we're going through. We can skip step A for a while, because that doesn't activate unless there's a contested crossing. So we're going to ignore that right now. We can skip step B because it says it has no unlocked die, and it now has an unlocked die, so we can skip that one. So it looks like step C is going to be where we're going here. The location shown on the bottom of the active Tengu card is available. This is showing that sort of fiery area right here. It's available, and the Tengu has at least one unlocked die, which it has now. So it's going to activate step C. It says to place an unlocked die on the location shown. Advance the Tengu's Kodama in that region one space and perform the corresponding action. So this is the Kodama right here. It's going to advance one space. At the end of the games, we're going to get points shown on the treasure tile for first, second, and third place. And now it's going to do the action of that space as shown on this card. That shows the building. So it's going to build a building. And the building that it wants to build is based on its rock there. So it shows its preferred type of building is blue or red. We have red there, we have two blues there, so lots of choices. When it's tied like that, it's going to take the innermost building. So it's going to take this red building, and it's going to build it in a section. You can see here we have all these areas for buildings, and they show what type of building can go there. So a red building can go here, 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 or here. And it wants to place this building in a spot where it's the most competitive on these Kodama tracks. And by competitive, it means it's behind by the fewest amount. So that means it's not going to go here because it's ahead. It's going to look at these 4 spots. It's tied in all of these spots. So it's going to break the tie by going to the leftmost spot. And so that's going to be right here. And when it places a building, regardless of what it says up there, it's just going to move its Kodama one space. It's going to ignore what that says up there. It's just going to move one space down, and it's going to mark the building that it built that building there. Oh, wait a minute. That's not true at all. The next thing it looks for is the most valuable spots. So these two are tied, and they're both worth 5 victory points. This one's only worth 4. For first place. So it's going to ignore that one. It's going to look at these 2 that are worth 5. Now these are both tied, so it's going to go to the leftmost spot. So it's going to go here instead. Sorry. And it's going to move down 1 there. Okay. The solo opponent is a little confusing here. There's a lot of little rules, so sorry, I'm going to probably make some mistakes. I'm trying my absolute best not to make any mistakes. Just know that there's probably going to be something that I forget about. Okay. I think we did that right. Now, when it builds buildings, it doesn't pay for it. It doesn't spend resources or anything like that. And remember, when we take these tiles down here, they don't refill until the end of the round, until both players have passed. So we just leave it out like that. So we discard that. They're done. These slide over, and that comes out. There we go. Okay, back to our turn now. And we have a little bit more options now. We have an unlocked die that we could put out. I'm looking at my dragonfly here now. That is going to give me one of these amulets, and the amulets are used to change the values of these dice. So I start with a 1 here, so I could increase this by 1 if I wanted to. And I probably will. I think we're going to place this. I'm going to increase it by 1 to get it to a 4. And we're going to place it here. Now, at this spot, with a 4, I can do this power here, or anything below it. These are just weaker versions of that. And this one is just to move my Kodama marker down 1. So I could choose to do that, but I'm not. I'm going to do this power here, which says either get a dragonfly tile or a spirit tile, and that little yellow thumbs up means at a 1 discount. So I can pay 1 less resource for whichever one I get. If I had managed to get this all the way up to a 6, I could get both at a 1 discount, but instead I have to choose. And I want to unlock this power of this dragonfly. And in order to do that, you have to pair it with a spirit tile. This is like the top version and the bottom version. So I want to get one of these. The cost is right down here. So the one in the rightmost spot costs, that's what that little red thumb down means. You have to pay a jade. Now that would be free for me because I get a 1 discount. So I could get either of these two for free. I could get this one. Normally it would cost a sake and then either a jade or another sake. But I could just get it for a sake. And this little thing at the bottom here, those are victory points that you get right away. So I would get 3 victory points right away for getting this. And I think I want this one because there's this rock right here that is going to give you points for this type of spirit. You can maybe see that. These are very tiny little icons, but that little icon there matches this one here. So at the end of the game, I can get some extra points for that matchup. So I think I will. I'm going to, even though these could be free, I'm going to grab this spirit here. I'm just going to pay 1 sake for that because of my discount. And for these bottom tiles, you get the reward right away. So I can either get a movement, which we haven't seen yet, but lets you move up on those on that sort of track up there. Or I can get one of those amulets. I'm going to get one of the amulets. So it's just a level 1. And now, because I have both, I can decide to combine them together, and I will. I'm going to go ahead and at this moment, pair them up. That will let me take the dragonfly ability there, which is just to get a level 2 amulet. And then you just put this off to the side of your board because at the end of the game, there can be some bonuses for those tiles. So now I've completed this forest action. Now I can also do a building action. As long as my die is equal to or greater than the die showing on the tile, and right now it is, so I can get another amulet. So here we go. I have a bunch of amulets so that I can increase the value of these dice and get better rewards when I place them out. That was my entire turn. I placed a die into a worker placement spot. Okay, it's our opponent's turn again. All right, a 2. So that's going to be this rightmost one again. Back to the chart. Okay, we can skip step A. No contested crossings there, right? We're on different sides here. So we're not in contested areas. By contested, they mean contested for these spots across the river. You'll see that in action here in just a little bit. But we can skip step A. B we can skip because we're not using the leftmost card. C we can skip because there isn't an unlocked die. It looks like D. Condition 1 is the Tengu has at least 1 locked die. That's true. And condition 2 is the Tengu has the associated resource, or the card shows no associated resource. Here it's wood. He has 2 wood. So boom, we meet those conditions. Unlock 1 die and spend the associated resource. This was what they did the first action. So we're going to unlock the smaller die, and then we're going to perform the action, but we're not going to place a die there. This is showing this area right here. You can see the matching artwork. And they're going to do 3 movement. You can spend movement in a couple of different ways. One of the ways is when you start getting these Bitoku cards. You can see here that creates a little path with a little footprint symbol there. You start building a path with these cards and you can move down it. So that would be the first thing that the solo opponent would do. But since he doesn't have any of those cards right now, we're going to look up here and we're going to start moving along this path. For their first movement point, they're going to place one of their pilgrims on the path. And you start by the gate. For their second movement, they're going to want to move to one of these illuminated spaces, if one's available, and one is. So for their second movement, they're going to move up and sort of lock into that illuminated space, and they're going to get the victory points that are shown there doubled. The pilgrim sort of goes back to sleep because they're going to stay there for the rest of the game, and it shows 2 victory points, so they're going to get 2 times 2, 4. And they're on the board. Now that was just 2 movement points. For their third one, they're going to put another pilgrim out. And there we go. Okay, back to us. Both of our dice are locked. We could burn a pilgrim. I'm not too concerned at the moment, so I think I'll play a card. we'll play this guy. That's going to unlock that dice. And now we can get either a dragonfly or a spirit. You can see here with the dragonflies, if you get this one, you actually gain a resource. This one's free. Here you have to pay any resource. That's what that symbol means. Tell you what, I think I might just grab this guy. He's going to let you, once he activates, once you pair him with a spirit, he's going to let us get a crystal for a 2 discount. So that seems good. We actually get to take a resource, and I might just take a wood. No, I have a wood. Let's take a sake. That's what I spent last time. Boom. Okay, a 4. So, middle card this time. We can skip step A. We can skip step B because it does have an unlocked die. Okay, step C. Step C says the location shown on the bottom of the active Tengu card is available. Now, if you look at that symbol, that doesn't correspond to any of these 4 spaces. So what that is saying is that you're going to look to their rock. This rock right here, it's either going to show buildings or it's going to show spirit tiles. Okay, those are the 2 types of those rocks. Since the rock that we have shows buildings, that means that the AI prefers this location right here, where they can go and get buildings. So this is corresponding to this location, which I believe is called the Forge. Right now, that is not available, right? Their block there's only 1 space. We're going to consider that space to be unavailable, which means that they don't meet the condition for step C, so we got to keep moving on. Step D, the Tengu has at least 1 locked die. That is true. The Tengu has the associated resource. Stone, they do have the associated resource, so boom. Oh, and I should be spending, sorry, I forgot. I should be spending that resource when they do that. So last time it was a wood, and the first time there wasn't a resource. That's why they didn't spend it. So that last time I should have had them spend that wood. And in this case, they're going to do this same thing again. They're going to unlock 1 die. They're going to spend the associated resource. So they're going to spend that stone. And then they're going to perform the action that's on the bottom of the location, but they're not going to place a die there. What that is sort of confusing icons are trying to tell you is that it's going to try to build a building that is its favorite, which is defined by that rock that it got randomly. And it's still got 2 buildings here that are one of its favorites. Going to take the innermost one, and it's going to build it somewhere. And again, we're going to look for the most contested Kodama. So these 3 are the most contested for it. It's ahead in these 2, so it ignores those. And then it's going to look for the most valuable one in terms of points. So that's this one. And so it's going to build the blue one in the blue spot. And it's going to get 1. So even though it shows 2 movement there in that corner, normally a player would get 2 movement on the Kodama track. The AI always moves just 1. And let me make sure I'm not forgetting anything there. Nope, that's it. Okay. So it is done. We now have an unlocked die. So what do we want to do with it? That's the question. I kind of want to go here. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. First things first, I'm going to spend this. We're going to make this die a 4. And we're going to place it right there. With a 4, I can get 3 movement. Great. I'm going to take one of my active awake pilgrims. Now, I only start with 3 awake pilgrims. The way that you unlock more pilgrims, you can see I have a bunch sleeping here, is by getting crystals. You put the crystals on the board, you put the pink ones here, you put the purple and the yellow ones up here, and they unlock pilgrims. We got 3 movement, 1 to put them out, and any number of pilgrims can be on those initial spots. It's just when you move up and sort of lock in, those can only have 1. So that's 1, 2, 3. Moving into that first spot, that's going to be 2 victory points. And because that is a temple spot, I get whatever is on that temple token there that was placed out at the beginning of the game randomly. And that says a level 3 amulet. So that is real nice. Okay, and the other thing I can do now is do a building action. Now I could do either of these building actions because I have a 4, that's a 4. So I could get a 2 amulet again. Man, I'm really building up those amulets. Or I could go here and unlock my last die. The reason I might want to do that is now my next turn I could put it out if I really wanted to before putting a card out. And that is tempting, but if I use my opponent's building, they're going to get a reward. Regardless of what the building says, the solo opponent always gets a point if you activate their building. I think I'll just take the amulet. There we go. So now I have a lot of power. I can move that 1, make it a 6 if I wanted to. So that's cool. Okay, middle again. We should note that both of the solo opponent's dice are unlocked. So that is going to change things a little bit here. We can skip the first 2. That location is not available. So we have to skip that one. We have to skip D because they don't have a locked die. We skip E because they're not at a contested crossing. So we're all the way to F now. The Tengu has not yet placed a die in the home of the Great Spirit. That's this location up here, these 4 spots. That's called the home of the Great Spirit. And so it hasn't yet, so that's true. And then 2 is the Tengu has at least 1 unlocked die, which is also true. So we're going to be placing up there. It says place an unlocked die on the second highest space in the home of the Great Spirit. If your die is already in that space, place it on the 3rd highest space. Advance the Tengu's Kodama in that region 1 space. Okay, there we go. It then says that the Tengu scores 3 victory points plus an additional 2 victory points for each of your dice, your meaning us, the player. So each of our dice that's showing a value of 5 or 6 that's currently in any of the locations below the river. Well, so fortunately, ours are both 4s. We didn't go to 5 or 6, so they're not going to get additional victory points, but they are going to get those 3 points. There we go, and that's their turn. In that instance, we sort of ignored what was on the card itself because it couldn't activate it. That can happen sometimes. All right, I think our turn's simple here. We're just going to play this card, unlock. That just gives us a movement. And so we'll put out another Pilgrim. And that was a pretty boring turn there. Okay, a 2. So first card. Back to the tack. I don't think anything has really changed, allowing them to take any of these opening steps. Oh, actually, perhaps. Nope, because that is actually locked, so... And they've just done F, so now we're at step G here, where it says the Tengu has at least 1 locked die. That is not the case, so we move on. The Tengu is at a crossing where a yokai or Bitoku card showing on the top half of the active Tengu card is available. And that is true, I believe. So that is showing the yokai card. There are some available. It's going to cross the river, and it's going to take one of those cards. It's going to take the card that's showing. So right here, it has a die here, and it's going to cross the river. Now, when the AI crosses the river, the dice never changed. They're always going to have a 2, 3, or 4. They never alter those. When we cross the river, as you'll see here just in a moment, our dice actually go down. But they're just going to grab one of those river spots. There's 2 there, you can see. And they're going to take one of the yokai cards. Neither of those match their favorite, right? Their favorite one is the one with that little dragon symbol, like this guy here. So one of those isn't available. I believe they choose at random at that point. And so you just roll a die. Okay, 4. It takes that one and it just adds it here. It never uses those cards like we do. It's just collecting those for end of game scoring. And one of the consequences of that is now that space is open for us to go to if we wanted to. I am tempted to go over there. My plan was to maybe cross the river at this point, but I have this area on lockdown right now, so I don't need to rush to do that. I think placing this die over there is super valuable. I can put out one of these buildings, yeah, or get a crystal. I wouldn't mind getting a crystal. Okay, I tell you what, we're gonna buff up this die. So +3 would get it to a 4. And the question is, do I want it to just be crazy? Yeah, you know what? I think we are gonna go crazy. So we're gonna bump it all the way up to a 6. 6 is the highest it can go. Plop it right there. So with a 6, we can get both a crystal and a building, and we can get a discount on one of them. So down here with these crystals, right now in the display, there is 1 pink one and 3 purples. You can see here, this leftmost one doesn't cost a resource. These cost 1 of any type of resource, and this costs 2 of any type. I think I'll take the free jade here. Now, your purple crystals come up here. Purple and yellow fill in these spots. And that will unlock a pilgrim, which I really needed to do. Now, these purple crystals activate at the beginning of a round. So we play 4 rounds. At the beginning of each round, all your purple crystals will activate. So at the beginning of the round, we'll get a jade. These pink ones you place in one of these 3 slots, and when you play a card to that slot, you then get to activate the crystal. And yellow crystals, there aren't any here. They give you victory points every time you do a particular action. So there we go. We got that one for free, and now we can build a building at a discount. Right now, we don't really care which buildings, although there is this rock here that says red and green. So maybe we'll build this green building. And the cost is shown here on your player board. So this is going to cost a wood, but we get a discount. So we don't have to pay that wood. And where do we want to place this? Now keep in mind, I can't place a green one here, but even if I did place a building here, I wouldn't get to activate it on the same turn. So there's no real reason to do that. So maybe here is a good spot. Put my identifying building there. This shows I get to move down 1. Okay, before we go on, I just noticed a mistake that I made. When I took this spirit tile, it shows you right there, you immediately get 3 points. And I forgot to do that. Just as a note, there's a couple of different types of victory points here. When it's in yellow, when you have that little yellow fish symbol, that means you immediately get the points. If it's something like this, like on my board here, one of these purple ones, you get those at the end of the game. So just be clear about that. You can see here I have I've uncovered those 2 points. I've uncovered 2 points here, down here. So as you build your buildings and you get your crystals, you're accumulating points for the end of the game. Errant roll there, but just a 1. So that location, that fire location I just went to, so that is not available. No locked dice, and we're still not in a contested region here because he's crossed the river, so we're not contesting each other here. If they had a die here, then we'd be contesting. So we just haven't had a contested crossing yet, and we can't do step C because the location isn't available. So we have to just keep going down. We're going all the way down here to H again, and right now they're not at a crossing. Right, he's already crossed there, and over here, there's nowhere to cross. You just stay there. So that's not working. So we're all the way down to step I at this point. It says, 1, the location shown on the bottom of the active Tengu card is not available. And that is true. And condition 2 is the Tengu has at least 1 unlocked die, which is also true. So boom, we've hit step I. So their action is going to be to find the location, excluding the home of the Great Spirit, with the most competitive Kodama, and place an unlocked die there, advance the Tengu's Kodama in that region 1 space, and perform the corresponding action. Okay, fine. So there's only 1 spot where they can go. Their Kodama moves 1 space, and the action, as you can see on the card there, is to get a crystal. So, we're going to go here. I haven't really shown this off yet, but the solitary rules are 5 pages of stuff here. This is why I'm very concerned that I'm making mistakes. And I apologize if I am. I'm doing my best. So now we just need to figure out how they decide what crystal to take. Okay, well, I'm assuming here that it's random. Okay, rolled a 1. So it's going to take that one. Puts it there. What that is saying right there is that in the spring, at the beginning of a round, it's going to get 1 movement point for each crystal that it has on the board. We don't have to worry about that right now. So we're back to our turn, and right now we have a contested situation over here, and there's only 1 more space to move over. I'm definitely going to try to take that space before they can. So we're going to cross the river. Now, when you cross a river, you normally turn your die down 1 space. So like over here when I cross with these guys, and you don't have to cross, but I probably will, I'm going to make those 4s into a 3. But when you have a 6, you actually lower it all the way to a 3. You lose 3 steps. That's the penalty for having that powerful of a die. That crosses the river, it turns into a 3, and now we get to take an action that's shown here. So we have 3 to choose from, and we can do it on either one of these spots. And it's pretty simple. You can take any one of those cards that are available up there. And I might want to take that Kappa card because I have this rock here that is going to potentially give me points for that. I could also take one of those Bitoku cards. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to take this Bitoku card right there. And normally I would place it right here and sort of extend the path here. You can see there's sort of a visual thing, but for table space purposes, I'm just going to place it over here. So just know that that's sort of the start of the path, and I could spend movement point to move over here and sort of get the stuff that's there. It's the AI's turn, but they can't do anything. Their dice are all locked up here. We snuck in there, so this die can't move across the river. They can't do anything. They pass. And now we can just keep taking actions until we pass. Remember, you can't pass until you've played all 3 of your cards and you have all 3 dice out. So, which we do, but we have a couple of river crossings that we can make if we want. And I do want to at least do 1. So we're going to move this 4 over across the river. It turns into a 3. And once again, we can take one of these rewards. I want to do this one here. This is to take the Bitoku card. This is to take the yokai card. And this lets you do 2 of these things, and they have to be different. Your different options are take a vision card. And I haven't really described vision cards. We start with one. At the end of the game, we can activate these cards to score points if we have these things. So one of the things we could do is get another one of these. You draw 2 and pick 1. Another thing we could do is just move one of our kodamas down the track. The third option here is to take a rock. And that's what I want to do. I want to take one of these rocks. And right now, both of these are working for me. I think I'll take this building one, and I'll put it right here. You just put it on your little path. And then the fourth option is to place a pilgrim on one of these rock spaces. And that's how these rocks score at the end of the game. Each pilgrim that is placed adjacent to a rock is going to give you 1 point for every one of those icons that you're fulfilling. So in this case, like for this one right here, there's 3 potential spots where you could put pilgrims. If you have all 3 pilgrims there, each one of your yokai cards that has that symbol is going to be worth 3 points. So right now, those rocks aren't worth anything. We need to put pilgrims around them. And that's exactly what I want to do. I'm going to do that as my second action there. We're going to take one of our awake pilgrims and just place it right here. So this one is actually giving points for both that rock and that rock. Since that's a primo spot, we're going to have to spend a resource. I'll just go ahead and spend this wood. And now you can only do each of these once, But because there's 2 spaces here, it kind of really doesn't matter. Normally, you would sort of X that out to show that you can't do that again, but there's one right over here. So in a 2-player game, it doesn't really matter that much. And honestly, I think I just want to I definitely want to cross again. So we'll go there with 3. I could do that again. I could place another pilgrim out here. I don't know. I could get another rock. I think instead I'd like to get this card right here. This actually goes straight into your hand, not into your discard pile. And there we go. I've played all my cards, played all my dice, moved them across the river. I'm out of actions, and so I will too pass. So now there's a couple of things that happen. We go into the autumn phase. The meat of the game, all those actions that we were taking were technically the summer phase. Now we move into autumn, and that's when we determine turn order. And you determine that based on the Home of the Great Spirit, I think it's called. This area up here. Whichever die is higher, that's how you determine turn order. I didn't put a die there, so the AI is going to keep first player in this case. We then go to the winter phase, which is a cleanup phase where we prepare for the next round. In the solo game, in winter, one of the things that we do is we select one of these rocks at random and we discard it. 6, so this one gets discarded. So for us, we resolve the winter phase pretty much the same as you would in a multiplayer game. First thing we do is we clear off these cards. Any of these tokens that are in this last space with that little fire icon get removed from the game. So in this case, just this one. Then everything slides down and you refill. Keep in mind, these rocks are never refilled. Those are the only ones that you have for the whole game. We get all of our dice back and they stay at the same value. Ours happen to be all 3s. The solo opponent, their dice never change. They always have a 2, 3, and a 4. And now we have a choice. If we have 5 or more cards in our entire tableau, and in this case we have 6. We started with 5, we gained 1. Then we can choose to retire one of these cards for whatever is at the bottom. So in the case of these starting cards, each one is worth 3 victory points if we retire it. We can only do 1, and I think I will choose 1. I'm gonna do this one. We slip it under here. So we still have that symbol for, say, like that rock and, in-game scoring. We get 3 points. Then the rest of our cards go into our discard pile. Okay, now we're ready for spring of round 2. We get to fill up our hand back to 4 cards. So we keep the cards that were already in our hand. So we had 1 in our hand. That's 2. We shuffle up our discard pile. 3, 4. Just like last time, we discard 1. Get rid of that. So now we have 3 cards in our hand. Our purple crystals activate, so here we get a jade. And for the solo opponent, since they have 1 crystal, they actually get a single movement point, as shown right there. They're just going to move their pilgrim 1 step forward. And there we go. We would move into the summer phase, start taking actions again, just like we did before. And we will do that for 4 rounds. At the end of the 4th round, we will then have the ascension phase, which is end of game scoring, and we'll have a winner. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip to the end of the game. I'm going to play out rounds 2, 3, and 4, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to show you how we score everything at the end of the game, and we'll see who won. And we're back. We have reached the end of the game. There's a lot to take in. You can see here, I'm currently ahead by quite a margin here. I'm at 71 points, and our solo opponent's at 39. So a pretty substantial lead going into in-game scoring. As you can see, I managed to get quite a few of these Bitoku cards. Moved all the way along the path. Managed to get all of my buildings built. We managed to do quite a lot. I think we're going to win by a pretty substantial margin here, but let's just go ahead and calculate all the points at the end and show you how it all works. Let's start with the solo opponent. The solo opponent's going to score in slightly different fashion. So let's just go through this. It's explained here in the rule book. A says it's going to score the visible VP for all building counters it's removed from the board. So we can see there written right on its board there. And that looks like 15 points. Okay, it's also going to score 3 VP for each yokai, building, and spirit, whether combined with a dragonfly or not, that matches its 2 rock tokens. So let's go through its cards here and see. It's got 1, 2. So it has 2 of the sort of wolf symbol that matches. So that's going to be 6 points. And let's see how many buildings, red and blue, that it has. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so 5 buildings that match that rock. So that's going to be 15 more points. Over here to 75. So there we go. Now it's surpassed me. Now it's going to score 3 VP for each starting yokai card, and it's going to score 6 VP for each advanced yokai. Okay, it has 3 advanced ones that it picked up along the way, and 5 starting. So that's 15 for the starting. So that goes to 90. 5, 10, 15. And then it's 6 each for these. 6 times 3, 18. All right, it's now at 108. It scores 1 VP for each resource that it has. So that's what? 6, 9. 17. Scores 2 VPs for each crystal. And it has 3, so that'll be 6 more. It scores its Bitoku cards in the same way that a human player would. And so we're going to consult a different chart. Lots of consulting charts in this game. Here we go. So this shows you the number of points you earned at the end of the game based on the different types of Bitoku cards that you collect. They managed to collect 2 different types, and so they're going to get 2 points. Okay, they're at 125. If it's first player at the end of the game, it gets 3 additional points, and it is 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then the last thing to score is going to be the Kodama tracks. I'm going to score those during my turn, so we'll leave it right there for now. So there we go, currently at 128. Okay, so now we get to score, and it's similar but a little different. So the first thing that we get to do is we actually get to collect our purple crystals. And the amulet doesn't matter, but we can collect these 2 goods. All right. Okay, now we get to score our Bitoku cards. We actually collected 5 different types. I have another chart here. This is the player aids that come for each player. On the back, it has the scoring. So 5 is 11 points. Now our rocks resonate. So we score our rocks. We're going to get to score based on the pilgrims that we have. And you can see here, I've surrounded both of these rocks. So the first one is going to score 3 points per that symbol that I've collected. So let's see. I think I have 3 of them. 1, 2, 3. So that's going to be 9 points. And this rock has 2 pilgrims around it, so it's going to be 2 points per each building that I've built of those 2 types, red and green. So I got 1 there, 2, 3, 4. So that's 8 points. 99. Okay, so now we add up the current value of our dice, plus the number of resources that we have, and we divide by 4, round down, and then we get that many victory points. Right now we're at 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Divide that by 4, that's rounded down is 3 points. And since we passed 100, we can flip our little thing here to show plus 100. Boom. We're closing the gap, but maybe not enough. Let's see here. Visions revealed. Okay, so we gain VP for the vision cards that we have completed, and we lose VP if we haven't completed them. I believe I've completed all 3 of these, so let's go through. This says have 2 pilgrims up there on illuminated spots. I definitely have that. 1 crystal. Got it. 2 crystals, so... I mean, I have mini crystals, actually. That doesn't just have to be pink. That can be any crystal. And then 1 good. So I'll go ahead and discard one of the goods for that. So that's 6 points. This one says 2 combos of your dragonflies and your spirit. We have 3, so that's good. A completed Bitoku card. Yep, we have 5 completed ones. And another crystal. Plenty of those. So that one's complete. This says any 2 goods. A leftover spirit, which we have, and a pilgrim on one of the gate spaces. And we have pilgrims on both of the gate spaces. So we've completed that. All 3 of these are worth 6 points. So that's 18. All right, that helped. We closed the gap there. All right, and now we get to add up our sort of purple victory points that are on our board. And this is where we're really going to outpace the solo opponent here, because we have all sorts of purple points on our board. 4, 7, 10. We got 20 points just in buildings. Then 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. And then the last thing that we need to add up is these area controls on the Kodama tracks. Now, the only difference here is that if any place where we're tied with the solo opponent is considered to be ahead of us. That's the only slight change in the solo rules. Let's just add up where our points. We get 4 for being in first place here. 5, so 9. 5, 14. We're last here, we get nothing, and we're ahead there, so we get 6. So we actually get 20 points there. And it looks like the solo opponent gets 0. They're tied here, so 1. Tied there, so nothing. Ahead here, so that's 4, so 5. And then second place 4, so 9. The end score is 137 to 172. And there you go. That's a playthrough of Bitoku. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.